and welcome to Built on Air, a podcast and video series about all things Airtable. I'm your host, Zoe Vanderplew, and before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, OpenSide. Visit openside.com for products and services that will take your Airtable to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir, one word, all caps, for a one-time $20 credit off of any purchase. Today I welcome Alex Wolfe, an Airtable enthusiast from Irvine, California. In this video, Alex combines his love for Airtable and video games in a base he created to recap the first ever Kind of Funny Games showcase. Alex used Airtable to assemble the video games featured in the show into an aesthetically pleasing catalog, complete with YouTube video timestamps. For a full interview with Alex, visit BuiltOnAir.com, and while you're at it, sign up for our mailing list for weekly updates on new episodes and other fun Airtable things.
When I started this base, originally my idea was to watch the live stream, which thanks to the embed block is now possible to just add in right here on the side, at least the YouTube video of the entire showcase itself. But my original idea was to, fill all this out with all the games and developers and platforms and all this information while it was going live. So if someone had the link, they could follow along, or at least by the time the event was over, it would be available, and kind of a quick reference for all these games, just to kind of continue the theme of sharing the work that these groups are doing. And I felt like while a spreadsheet is helpful and you can see the names of games and developers, something that Airtable, I think, really does well is showing data in different ways, but also kind of more attractive ways, if you will. And one of those is this gallery view that you can see now, which I feel is oftentimes one of the first barriers or helpful things when you see the artwork of a game. Maybe you're immediately interested, maybe you're immediately turned off by it, but at least you can get more information than just the title.
Right.
So, the other point of the base was to try to make it easy for someone to look up the trailer and maybe get more info on the game. And so I created a formula to automatically link to a timestamp of each trailer. So basically, converting this duration field into minutes and seconds, and then figuring out how the YouTube URL works to kind of plug that in. And that's something that I would say I've tried to do, or at least incorporate into a lot of other bases, which is, I guess, for example, in my current job, since we do so much field work, one of the biggest things we have to do is go to these different sites and manage multiple locations, oftentimes doing 2 to 3 different projects at once. So it's really helpful to map out all your locations and check the weather and things like that, and plugging in a formula that can automatically link to the locations and map it out has been hugely helpful. And
for sure.
So I try and incorporate things kind of like that when I can, when the URLs are friendly enough to kind of add in that information. So that's what I did here with adding the seconds and trying to link to each of these timestamps.
Yeah, very nice. It makes it so much more convenient. Yeah, that kind of like figuring out the, like how to do the unique URL is like always really nice, because you feel like you're like, I just saved myself, like 2 clicks and, 10 keyboard strokes, right? To click on each link. So that's really cool. Because also it's, no one has to kind of like go through and scrub through that entire, recording of the live stream. It's just super quick and accessible to kind of get them to where they want to go.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's really the goal with this base and most of the other things that because I published this to Airtable Universe, and most of the other ones that I've published there, I always try and the goal when I publish it is hopefully it's helpful to someone, right? And also hopefully it can show someone something maybe they didn't know was possible in Airtable. Not that that I'm the expert by any means, but I'm always looking to learn more and browsing through the community forums to see what issues arise and solutions people are finding. So hopefully, this not only helps the developers who are making the games by kind of highlighting what it is they're doing, but maybe gets other people into Airtable and seeing the kind of functionality it can provide.
Yeah, definitely. This is such a great use case because it kind of combines, just like a really great topic, I think, that lends itself to Airtable. That's not just like a CRM or, tracking something for a business. It's something like pretty fun and cool. But also like, yeah, the way you've organized this is just, it's, super aesthetically pleasing because of Airtable's views, and you have everything sort of like nice and neat and laid out. So did Kind of Funny Games ask you to do this, or did you just kind of, feel inspired to do a side project?
No, they didn't ask me. Although if they had, I would have done it definitely. But it was just a side project. I felt inspired by the event and really what they were trying to accomplish with it, and just seemed like I'm always kind of looking for reasons to incorporate Airtable into something, and this seemed like almost a perfect opportunity to do just that. And I think with a lot of the recent updates Airtable has had, like the embed block and things like that, has really made this even more kind of functional. But they're actually planning additional events in the future similar to this showcase, and we'll see. I would probably plan on making more, but it was a decent amount of work, so it may not be quite as immediate as this one was. But
right, were you actually able to kind of fill in the base in real time as you were going along, or did that seem a little bit too ambitious?
It was definitely too ambitious just to crack it all, but I did fill out everything I could. Things like on this table, all the Twitter accounts, those definitely took a bit longer. But ideally you would fill it in as it goes. But even if I published it to Airtable Universe or something like that, they take time to process and review before they fully publish that to the public. So you never really know. But it's not quite, I would say, to the point where someone could follow along live, but ideally, at least it's there if an event ends, and they can go back and reference it.
Yeah, and you can have something like, quickly share the link to Airtable Universe or just embed it somewhere and everyone can see it. And then, so let's just, I think your structure here is like fairly, self-explanatory, but it looks like you have the games, table, of course, which is sort of the main one. And then you're linking the games to, their developer and then also their platform that they're on.
Yeah. So the platforms to me is more of a kind of statistic, or just to see the number, especially for things like PlayStation Vita, which has officially lost a lot of support from PlayStation and Sony who made it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see like people are still developing for this system that is considered outdated. But
right. I'm assuming there's probably like a small but very passionate community, right, about PlayStation Vita games. So there's, a few developers every year who will kind of continue support for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would consider myself in that small group of very passionate fans. So.
Cool. And then what is the links table that you have in the base?
Yeah. that's mainly to point back to
Nice.
kind of funny. I usually try to include something like a links table or sources or points of reference for information that is not my own, just to share what they're doing and you know not only promote the base and the functionality of Airtable, but the people who are kind of putting the work in and making this all happen.
I love that. It's like the Airtable version of a like a bibliography for a term paper or something. That's really cool. So also, and you seem to be kind of like a pretty active person on Airtable universe. So do you have any other bases or anything up right now that we can kind of just quickly give a glimpse of, so people can check out your universe page if they're interested in learning more about these topics, or just your base tips and tricks?
Yeah, I've made a couple others that are video game focused, like a game collection and backlog tracker, if you will. Let me see what else might work. But yeah, I have another one up there that is just like a basic poll. I felt like when the forms and everything were kind of getting added to Airtable, they didn't have a template necessarily for that. So again, just trying to make things that might be useful to people. But
yeah, absolutely. And then Airtable has made some recent, improvements to their forms too, like, allowing you to limit record selection to a view and stuff like that, which is really cool. It seems like they're sort of improving that area because people love it so much. And we'll link to your Airtable universe page too, so everyone can kind of just check out your additional stuff. Yeah, you have like a pretty good amount of bases. I think you have 9 on here, right?
Yeah, I think so right now.
And it's cool too, because you're sort of, you have some like, more professional stuff in here. You have some video game stuff. You have some like, just kind of Airtable examples. So I think your work on Universe kind of does like a really good job of following up, on how you're like, I use it for everything. Like,
Yeah.
anything that I can think of to put in here, I'll put in here, which is really cool. And so is there anything now that you're like, any new projects in Airtable that you're working on that you're excited about personally or professionally?
I really like and I chose not to share it for this just because the amount of kind of data scrubbing and
for sure
privatizing of the data would have taken quite a bit. But my kind of go-to base these days is what I just made for my personal life. So for personal projects, day-to-day tasks, even what movies I want to see in the future. Mainly because I want it all kind of in one place, especially in one place where you can make a calendar that syncs with your Google Calendar and notifies you. And all that to me is just super powerful and has changed a lot of the way that I do things. Because my background in using this type of program started years ago when I read Getting Things Done. And from there, I kind of adopted an Evernote way of going about that, and then that transitioned to a Microsoft Access database. And I can't even remember when Airtable came along when that transition happened, but it was like as soon as I saw it, I knew it was the better version that I've been looking for of the base that I was, or the Microsoft Access database that I was currently using. So going back to that personal base I mentioned, it's just been a huge help to me to not only like track your tasks and projects, and not that I want to make my personal life project management CRM necessarily, but not that there's anything wrong with that. But for me, it was also a way to like I recently incorporated a way to review what I've done over the last week. So like to calculate, how many things did I get done, or where am I at on these projects, and kind of do the old school getting things done weekly review, and try and show progress any way I can, just to keep yourself motivated when you're working on things that take a bit longer.
For sure. Yeah. Like tracking your velocity and progress. And I think there definitely is like something really satisfying about tracking your personal life in that way. Like it does take some discipline, but it's kind of cool to like quantify this like thing that seems so unquantifiable, like what did Zoe do today? And that kind of thing. So that's really cool. Maybe once you've kind of gotten it to a decent point and you can scrub it from all personal Alex stuff, we'll see that on the universe sometime to check out.
Yeah, I thought about it, definitely.
And then if people want to reach out to you, any of our listeners, where should they go to contact you?
The best way is probably through Twitter. I'm on there at Alex Wolfe, ALXWLFE, and pretty responsive. That's where I try and share some of this Airtable stuff I do, and get it into the hands of more people, just because I think it's just super useful and might help somebody somewhere out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool for everyone. And I really enjoyed kind of talking to you about all of the different ways that you use it, seeing this sort of like really elegant game showcase space that you've built, and also just getting to learn a little bit more about environmental noise analysis, which is really cool. So thank you so much, Alex, for your time, and we'll be on the lookout for sort of future fun Airtable-y things from you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time having me on. Appreciate letting me share this space, and hope you guys have continued success with the podcast. I think it's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. See ya.
All right.